In 1991, India was at the brink of bankruptcy, and so how did we come out of that situation, and how did Dr. Manmohan Singh play an important role in making this change and making India better than how it was? So that's what we're going to see in this video right now. Stay tuned. Alright, so before we come to know about the situation of what happened in 1991, let's see how did we actually end up in a very bad state. So right after 1947, when India got freedom, our Indian leaders were very confident in one thing: we are not going to let any outsider like East India Company come inside again and rule over us. So they were pretty sure about it, and they made the regulatory policies and stuff in such a way that it's very tough for a foreign player to come and establish here in India. So why did they do this? Because it's not, I won't call that unjust, because the kind of experience, the kind of bad experience Indian people had with the East India Company and the Britishers was not so sweet. So how did this affect the Indian economy? Since they don't have any private players, since it was very tough for any private players to set up an industry and come in, the kind of bureaucracy involved, the kind of paperwork and the kind of corruption that was involved was too much that, setting up a new industry in India, getting a license for new industry in India is almost impossible. That's why India was even known as License Raj, which means the rule of licensing. So because of this, all the major industries like mining, infrastructure, steel, telecom, all these had to be set up by the Indian government only. I mean the public sector companies. So what is the side effect? I mean, what can go wrong with this? When you have just one player in an entire industry, you don't have any competition, so you won't have any innovation, you won't have any growth, and you'll have too much of corruption and bureaucracy things and stuff going on like that. So that was what happening. Now fast forward to 1985. So already India's growth was pretty slow. The pace was not so good, and in 1985 two events happened. One is the splitting up of USSR into 15 different nations, and the Gulf War. So how did these two affect India? So first one, India had a really good tie with USSR, very supportive to India in terms of military infrastructure and things like that. So when they had a problem within their own country or group of countries, the kind of communication we had affected for a short period of time. And the Gulf War, obviously, it increased the price of petroleum products, so it was very tough for India to buy petroleum. So already slow economic growth. On top of this, we are facing these two things. India was now going down into a crisis. So in order to relieve India from this crisis, the RBI governor and the finance minister of India at that time, they rushed to International Monetary Fund for asking extra money to revive this country from this bankruptcy situation. And they expected the chief of International Monetary Fund to not ask one question, which he exactly asked. So when they were talking with the IMF, what happened here in India is that the ruling party lost its support, and Rajiv Gandhi's party government started to gain more support. And so the chief exactly asked the same thing. So how can I give money to you if your own party doesn't have any rule over your country? So that was an embarrassing moment actually. So what happened back in India? It turned out that Rajiv Gandhi is going to be the next prime minister. He had the best of the confidence and everything, things like that. And while he was campaigning across India, he came to Tamil Nadu, and unfortunately he was killed in a bomb blast. So already we had some economic crisis going on, and on top of this we had this political crisis. So somehow the party settled all these issues, and P.V. Narasimha Rao was the person who was elected as Prime Minister in 1991. So generally when a person is elected as Prime Minister, he'll be having a celebration before the day of acceptance of the role, right? So he didn't do any of those. He just went straight to the Finance Secretary of India and asked him, is this situation really bad, as bad as I see in the newspapers and TV? And the finance secretary replied, it's worse than that. So he was very quick in actions, and he appointed Dr. Manmohan Singh as the finance minister of India. Now, Dr. Manmohan Singh, he was the ex-RBI governor and was also the ex-finance secretary of India. So he was pretty well qualified. And what that person did after his appointment as the finance minister of India, was really interesting. So he made two immediate changes. One is he brought down the value of Indian rupee against dollar by 20%. Nowadays, even if the value of any country's currency for that matter goes down, people will start creating dramas. It becomes a havoc in the country. So imagine those days. He just, this guy, newly appointed finance minister, the first thing he did was to bring down the value of rupee by 20%. So people thought this government is nuts. They just lost it. So the second thing he did was, okay, I'll tell you why he did the first one. When a country's currency value is going down, it becomes a very attractive spot for the foreign investors to put investment in, because it's easy to invest in this country which has a less value of money. So it kind of opened the gate for imports. And secondly, he airlifted 47 tons of gold from India, and he took it to other countries, converted them to cash, and brought back to India. So short-term problem kind of solved. India had enough cash to kind of run the vehicle. Cool. And after a month being finance minister, he released a legendary budget, and that's what changed the country to how we are right now, fifth largest economy in the world. Before 1991, India had a list of things that can be imported from other countries. So in this new budget, he made an opposite list, which means he made a list of items that you cannot import from other countries. Rest all you can import. So that opened up immense opportunities for imports. And secondly, what he did was he, like 80% of the companies, he removed it out of that licensing system, out of the license Raj. And thirdly, he allowed 51% of shares to be held by the foreign investors. So this again attracted more investments. And finally, there were a lot of areas, lot of land in India which was reserved only for the public sector companies. He abolished all of them, and he told anyone can start company anywhere. That kind of mentality he brought in. So and on top of that, even public sector companies, if they want to expand, they have to go through a huge bureaucratic process, and they have to get approval from the government for each and everything. So he just demolished all of them, and he gave complete autonomy, and he made sure that they can take decisions on themselves and don't disturb the other parties. So he kind of brought that globalization thing into India, and that was a huge thing for a country like India during the period of 1991. So how all these things are going to affect or make any positive impact on the common man? Okay, first of all, a lot of companies started to come in. So before 1991, we only had like two car brands. One is this Hindustan Motors, which had this hideous looking thing called Ambassador, and the other one was Premier Padmini, I don't know what that brand even means. Secondly, and in terms of electronics, we only had Oneida and BPL. Then after 1991, we started having all the Japanese and Korean brands like Sony, LG, Samsung. And in terms of food, we had nothing before 1991, and a lot of fast food companies started to pitch into India, like McDonald's, Coca-Cola, Pepsi, and stuffs like that. And you know what? Indians started to have more opportunity to enjoy, and since all these companies were coming in and setting up factories, these people started to get a lot of jobs. Indian people started to get a lot of jobs, and they started to make more money. In turn, they had more option to spend that money. So overall, rotation of money became increased, and the economy grew overall. So it started growing at a very fast pace, faster than what they predicted it would be. And right now, fast forward to 2023, we are the fifth largest economy in the world. And this is a great thing. Long story short, that's how we ended up where we are, due to that decision made by that one man, Dr. Manmohan Singh. And yeah, that's the informative content for today. And if you like this video, if you love this content, please do subscribe to the channel and share with your friends and family, and I'll see you in the next one. Stay tuned.